And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just fine. The Super Bowl's finally over. Just on to the countdown, the baseball season, the stretch drive and the stretch drive and hockey season and basketball season, and of course the very start of NASCAR season beginning this weekend. So it's a lot of stuff to be excited about, and more importantly, the countdown to warm weather and no more of this fucking snow.
You're right, man. The groundhog did say we had 6 more weeks of winter, but guess what? Once the Super Bowl is over and baseball season is right in front of us, these guys are reporting for spring training now. We see the guys coming in and having actual sessions and everything down there. So very, very cool to see. But yeah, Dan, you know what? Before we do turn that page officially to baseball, because we got some stuff to get into as well. Let's just start off with the football news. We'll do the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's a couple of things that go into that too, so it's going to be interesting to see your take. But starting off with the Super Bowl this past Sunday, it was a blowout from the beginning. Dan, I mean, the Eagles just absolutely kicked the teeth in of the Kansas City Chiefs. They end their bid to be the first team ever to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. They're the second team ever to go to 3 straight. They can go to 4 straight if they go next year and tie the Bills, but they will not have a chance to win 3 or obviously 4 straight next year. They come up short, and they ended up putting up a lot of these points late. It was a blowout. It was 27-0. I think it was even 34-0 at one point. Just absolute shelling. The Eagles, Saquon Barkley looked good in this game, but the guy that really separated himself was the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who, to steal a phrase from Cody Rhodes, finished his story. And, this is a guy that came in, had a lot of early success, had a lot of doubters, got to the mountaintop and lost, and then got back to the mountaintop and won again. So you got to give a lot of credit to Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts and the champion Eagles. Dan, what'd you think of the big game?
That was just like a shocking. That was a score a lot different than what I expected. I expected maybe there was going to be high scoring. I expected the game to be a lot closer, but it turned out to be a heck of a blowout. Horrible halftime show, which just
Yeah,
led to me
really.
Beavis and Butt heading the halftime show. And I'm hearing next year people want Metallica to do the halftime show next year since it's in the Bay Area. And I told people if they really want this, they got to deal with this idiot named Jay-Z who produces the halftime shows now, who does a horrible job with some of these acts that they
J-
do for the halftime
is
show.
Jay-Z the
And
producer every year now?
the last couple of years, yeah, and I had a scary feeling then again. So I told him, I said, if you want something like this, I encourage people, and I encourage you to do this. Blow up the Twitter accounts of the NFL and Jay-Z, who's probably producing the halftime show again. Blow up the Twitter accounts. If you
Yeah,
badly want to see Metallica do the halftime show, they can't ignore you. You keep blowing up their Twitter accounts about it.
this is true, my friend. I definitely would love to see Metallica
Yeah,
do the halftime show next year, but unfortunately, I kind of agree with you. Especially if Jay-Z's the guy calling the shots, I don't think that's going to happen.
yeah. Unfortunately, Jay Z has a damn. Fuck you and your anti-rock idiot, Jay Z. Fuck you, Jay Z. You
Yeah,
Jay Z.
man, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. You know what I thought of that halftime show? It stinks.
I I agree with you on that one, Joel.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to admit, if the fans somehow blow up the Twitter accounts of the people in charge of that decision enough that it somehow gets them to budge, and we do get Metallica doing a halftime show next year, it'll be a rare halftime show. I will not go to the bathroom. I will actually watch the
You're
halftime
right.
show. I
Yeah,
went
man.
to the bath. I went to the bathroom during the halftime show. I looked at it just to see what people were commenting on. You probably saw me post a post on Twitter when I says, "Oh, what is this? The guards in Squid Games do work as backup dancers in Super Bowl halftime shows during for they work as backup dancers for rappers when they're not when there's no Squid Games going on because those whatever those backup dancers were wearing look too much like the guards at Squid Game.
Yeah, it was a interesting choice with that. To be honest, I really haven't seen much of it. Really had no interest in anything going on with that. But that would be different if it's Metallica next year.
Yep, exactly. And I have to say, one good thing that happened a couple days later, the shake machine worked. The green shakes, because this guy, well, he unfortunately he's not wearing his Mets cap yet, but he has usually during the games he has the little ice cream bowl on. I put the ice cream bowl on him, but this guy said he commanded the ice cream machines, the shake machines to work, and guess what? They worked, and I believe that he's bestowed upon our Mets good mojo for our Mets this upcoming season, because the shake machine worked, and I appeased the grimace by getting one of those green shakes. I appeased the grimace and his uncle.
There you go. So everything's working out on the Shamrock Shake front. And Dan, I did want to ask you though, there is some other fallout coming from this weekend of the Super Bowl. So obviously, Patrick Mahomes had a pretty bad game. He ended up making his stats look a little bit better at the end, but for the most part, he kind of crapped out. Hey, you're gonna have a bad game every once in a while. Unfortunately for Pat Mahomes, this first bad game in a long time came the Super Bowl. So you gotta feel for him for that. And also some other nonsense came out from his dad, former Met Pat Mahomes, the pitcher for the Mets who was there in 99 and 2000. And apparently we're going to be getting a boxing match between Pat Mahomes and John Rocker. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, Dan. There's actually video that goes along with it. There was a confrontation between these two guys in New Orleans during the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if it was before the game or the direct aftermath of the game, but there was a confrontation between these two guys, and they almost came to blows in the middle of the street. And now it looks like they've actually, and Barstool was reporting this earlier today, a contract has been signed by both parties, and these guys will be boxing each other on April 19th. But here's the video. That's Rocker approaching Mahomes. Mahomes has the red hoodie on. This Rocker looking like a jacked animal, to be honest.
This just sounds like a dumb staged publicity stunt.
See, I'm so glad you said that, because why would the person have been recording anyway, right?
Yeah, I just feel like so much. This just looks so much a publicity stunt. There's another nonsensical shit at the Super Bowl. The other thing, and this one I'm kind of celebrating. I heard Taylor Swift was annoyed at people booing her during the Super Bowl. Grow a pair.
Well, who cares? But one thing about Taylor Swift. But what do you think about these guys, Dan? Like, so you think that this is totally staged? You don't think there's any authenticity to it at all?
No, it's staged. It's staged.
I agree with you.
I said it. It's staged. I looked at it. I saw the article. I said, "Yep, it's staged." But yeah,
did you see that before I just showed you it?
I heard about it.
Okay.
But I was gonna say is that this whole thing that Taylor Swift was bitching about it is leading to sort of good news. She says she might never attend a football game again.
Yeah, that's the best thing I ever heard. And I still hope that Travis Kelce retires, even though, he would have done it on the field if they won. I guess he would have announced it probably, but after they lost, what are you going to do? You really can't do that.
But exactly, either way, we finally have football Taylor Swift free. That's why
that's true. But Dan, I do want to get your opinion on this now. Obviously, we saw the video and everything. We both think it's obviously a publicity stunt. But in this match. There's going to be a boxing match apparently. So who would you take? I mean, look, I got to side with Mahomes because, he's a Met. We all love Pat Mahomes and everything. But, man, you look at it, John Rocker. You see how big that guy still was? I think John Rocker knocked Mahomes' head off.
Yeah, as much as I can't stand Rocker, probably is going to win this one.
All right. I had to bring that up, though, because it did make me laugh at how ridiculous that whole thing was. But I do want to finish up our maybe we'll get to one little thing after that too. But Dan, me and you discussed it on our Sunday Patreon show. If you are a longtime viewer or listener of the show, consumer of the content that we put out, you know that I am a diehard Jets fan, obviously, and a big-time Aaron Rodgers supporter. And I got the ultimate kick in the gut early on Super Bowl Sunday when it was announced, the news broke by Jay Glazer from Fox Sports that the Jets have decided to part ways with quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I can't hate this decision anymore. I think it's absolutely cowardly by the Jets organization. I think this was the first big test that Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie, or Moogie, however the hell you say his garbage name, had to pass, and they failed, miserably failed, because one of the big things that's coming out now in the past 24 to 48 hours since this story broke, that one of the sticking points is that the Jets wanted Aaron Rodgers to stop doing the Pat McAfee show, as if that matters to anybody. Like, how could you possibly think Rodgers doing the or like, why would that be a sticking point for the Jets? Why do they give a shit what media Aaron Rodgers does when he's been doing this since 2020? He's been going on McAfee's show for 5 years, and guess what? He gets paid $1 million a year to do it. And not saying that he needs it. The guy has a lot of money as it is and still making a lot of money with his contract and everything. But it's still $1 million commitment, meaning that he has a commitment to Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee appreciates and relies on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers returns that with the content he delivers. And it has not impacted him at all. As a matter of fact, in the tenure of this relationship between McAfee and Aaron Rodgers, he's won 2 MVPs. He's been to an NFC championship game. This is a guy that, this is why the Jets will always, it's like, you ever see the meme where it's the kid riding his bike and he takes a stick and sticks it in his own spikes, his spokes, and then blames somebody else for it? That's exactly what this is right now. This reminds me exactly of what happened with Brett Favre after the 2008 season, where the Jets just said, it's time to cut bait with Favre. Now, I know the story is, too, that Rex Ryan did try to talk Favre into coming back, and Favre didn't want to come back to the Jets. He only wanted to go to the Vikings. We understand that story. The thing is, the Jets cut bait with him and just let him go to the Vikings for nothing. They just let him walk. And the Jets are going to do the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. I guarantee you they're not going to trade him to whatever team he goes to next year. And I also guarantee you has success with next year, wherever that is, Pittsburgh or San Francisco or any other team that actually wants a competent quarterback, which apparently the New York Jets don't want. So in this felt swoop, too, the Jets are giving up on future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Aaron Rodgers, and his wide receiver that you gave up a 3rd-round pick for already. So I don't understand. The Jets are just determined to destroy their team every turn. Darren Moogie and Aaron Glenn cared more about putting their stamp on this organization than they did winning in 2025. And I'm sorry, I know this might sound crazy, but for an organization that hasn't won in 15 years, maybe once prioritize winning. Dan, I had to get that off my chest because I've been questioning my faith to the Jets. I've been a faithful team. I sat through 1996 where they went 1-15. I sat through 2020 where they went 2-14. I watched every play for both those seasons. If you cut my veins open, green spills out. That's how much I love the Jets. But guess what? I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to sit here and watch Tyrod Taylor be the quarterback of the Jets or some jack shit rookie they pick in the first round. Well, actually, probably wouldn't be in the first round, but we'll get to that in a sec. Dan, what do you think when you see this decision to let Aaron Rodgers walk by the Jets?
Probably has to be the dumbest thing, and I gotta tell you, suicide prevention is gonna be very busy for quite a while.
Yeah, and why could it not? Now you're going to tell me that I have to have Tyrod Taylor? And look, it's no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. The guy's a decent quarterback. The problem is he gets hurt all the time, and he's just not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is one of the all-time greats. Tyrod Taylor is a C+ to B- quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is better than that even now. So say what you want. The Jets are saying, hey, Jet fans, be patient. We've been patient long enough. I'm sick of it. And you know what? In 3 years, when the Jets are out there looking for a new head coach and a new GM, this is one of the days I'm going to point to and say, this is when they blew it. And they didn't even hold a practice yet. They didn't even coach a game yet. And this asshole GM didn't even pick a player yet. And look, I don't even know what he's going to be. I hope I'm completely wrong. I have egg on my face, and maybe a year from now, I'm saying, hey, the Jets actually made the playoffs and had a good year. But what are the odds of that? There's no way the Jets are with this route, too. You might as well just go and trade the only stars you have on your team. You just let two of the brightest guys you had walk, your quarterback and Devontae Adams, who both won't be Jets next year now. So what are you going to do? You've got what, maybe 1 year left of Sauce Gardner. You got maybe 1 year left of Garrett Wilson. Maybe 2 years left of Breece Hall. It's just ridiculous that the Jets have put themselves in this situation. And to me, it all goes back to Woody Johnson being one of the worst owners in sports. This guy just doesn't get it. He hired this 33rd team to take over the whole look for the Jets. And the guy they ended up hiring, first of all, we've been down this road a million times, but they didn't talk to any of the Super Bowl winning head coaches with credentials. They talked to all these stiffs, including Ron Rivera, which was a joke. And they hired Aaron Glenn, which if you didn't need a outside firm to tell you that Aaron Glenn was a good choice to be head coach. And if you do, you shouldn't be making the calls as an owner in the NFL. It shows you are inept and you have a zero football IQ. I have no faith in this Jets organization anymore. It completely makes me sick when I sit here and think of Woody Johnson and his brother sitting in the they hold up in their office to figure out, the two of them trying to figure out who the next GM is going to be before they officially announced that it was going to be some guy named Darren Muji, which, by the way, I want to make this crystal clear. Darren Muji was hired as a scout or whatever in the Denver Broncos organization the year they won the Super Bowl in 2015. He progressed up the ladder of the Denver Broncos organization every year after that. And he was one of the main players in a front office that led to the second longest playoff list streak in football, aside from the Jets, after that Super Bowl win. They missed the playoffs the following 8 years. And it wasn't until Sean Payton showed up and turned that thing around. And anybody giving anybody else credit for that, what do you think, aside from printing out a scouting report and leaving it on Sean Payton's desk, what do you think Darren Muji had anything to do with the guys that Sean Payton drafted the last year or two? Or him picking Bo Nix? Give me a break. People, want to give way too much credit to this guy Muji. When you look at his resume, the guy presided over the destruction of the Denver Broncos record. Not to mention, I want to know what his influence was when they drafted a guy in the first round named Paxton Lynch, who stunk at quarterback. I want to know what his role was in the trade for Russell Wilson, where it's potentially one of the worst trades in the history of football. So this is what the Jets are giving me to look forward to in 2025. And I just can't take it anymore, Dan. I mean, there are a lot of people I texted ever since this decision was handed down. And I just said, I don't know if I could even be a Jet fan anymore. What can I look forward to? And I know that might be a little bit, me just in the heat of the moment because I'm such a passionate fan, but it is really disgusting what the Jets have done to their fans. And then not to mention, in the midst of a garbage season, hitting up their season ticket owners with a 30% price increase in November of the season where they missed for the 14th year in a row to get to the playoffs. So, you can understand why there's a lot of frustration against the New York shit Jets organization right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just become nuts, and it's a to miracle you'll survive this one. Because if this year wasn't bad enough, holy shit, next year is gonna be gonna get it's gonna set up to be a lot worse for you guys. It's just gonna. I've said it before. I would badly want to just see you and Larry David just go at it together on this whole thing. Talk about this whole thing together. You guys vented out over this whole thing together. You and Larry David. That would just be gold. That would just be podcast gold right there. I don't care if I'd be silent most of it. Just seeing that whole thing unfold. You and Larry David talk about this whole thing would be epic.
The problem is, Dan, that there are a lot of Jet fans out there that it doesn't matter what the Jets do, they're going to support it. And to me, that's a big problem. These people are the guys that thought it was a great idea to hire Adam Gase. These are the same people that even after it was clear that Zach Wilson stinks, still wanted to sit here and tell you how great the guy is going to be. These are the same people that defended Joe Douglas until his final days here, where Joe Douglas is, he might have had a bunch of hits as a scout, but as a general manager for the New York Jets, his ineptitude eventually caught up to him. So I don't know, Dan. I don't know where Larry David fits, but there are a lot of Jet fans out there that are happy that Aaron Rodgers is gone, and there's another group of people that are happy Aaron Rodgers is gone from the Jets, and that's the New York media. These assholes, led by a whole bunch of these guys that couldn't give a shit less about the Jets, ran this guy out of town. They were putting pressure on Woody Johnson. Even as soon as that injury happened, there was talk about it last year, even before he came back this season, and had statistically the third best Jet quarterback season of all time. Let's not forget that. 28 touchdowns. Only 2 people in Jet history have ever done that. Only one guy has thrown more yards than him in history. Actually, 2, including Fitzpatrick. I forgot he had 39.05. But by about 10 yards, he beat Rodgers. That's about it. So it makes me sick. These people don't understand what they're signing up for, and they live in a Madden world where you can get a whole bunch of draft picks, tear the thing down, and rebuild and rebuild and rebuild until you get the quarterback of your dreams. Guess what? We've tried that how many times over the last 10 years? They got Geno Smith. That blew up in their face. They got Sam Darnold. That blew up in their face. They got Zach Wilson. That blew up in their face. You had a guy. You actually had a guy where you could have gone for it this year, and you said, you know what? We're good. We don't need to compete for the playoffs and end a 15-year drought. We're good. I can't even talk about it anymore. The Jets just make me sick. They're just awful. Real quick to round out on this on the football talk, Dan. Obviously the NFL draft talk is going to ramp up in the next coming weeks. We really have nothing to talk about football-wise until the free agency kicks off in about a month in the NFL. Mid-March or so is when the NFL free agency calendar is supposed to start up. But we got some draft talk, and there's a lot of people saying that there's a scenario, too, where now the 2 teams in front of the New York Giants, the Browns and the Tennessee Titans, are potentially not going to take a quarterback. So I've seen scenarios where they have the Giants getting Cam Ward at number 3 and Shedeur Sanders actually dropping to the Jets at 7. So I don't know if that's going to see. I would think that's a very, very unlikely scenario. Even if the Jets trade up, it would still be tough to get one of those 2 quarterbacks. I actually could even see the Jets reaching and taking a guy like Jackson Dart or something like that way earlier than people think. than getting one of those top two guys. What do you think about the chances of both guys being in play, Dan?
I can't see the Jets pulling that off. I feel like the Jets are gonna more like have a chance at a dart or something. I feel like Cam Ward might fall into the Giants' hands from what I've been seeing. If that has a better chance of that happening.
Yeah, the mocks that I've seen are potentially Abdul Carter going number one. He's the pass rusher D end that a lot of people are saying is the best player in the draft, and he is being looked at as potential number one. Or hey, if he doesn't go number one, maybe I forget the kid's name from Colorado, the receiver for hold on a sec. Let me pull this up right here. Travis Hunter. So what I'm seeing is that Abdul Carter could go one or two, and Travis Hunter could go one or two as well, which would drop, Shador Sanders and Cam Ward in the draft. I mean, it's just an interesting thing to think about. I do agree with you that it's probably unlikely for the Jets at least to get one, but I think the Giants are going to be right in the mix to get, especially if all the Giants need is for Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter to go one or two. And, because I've seen Travis Hunter go four to the Patriots. I've even seen mocks where Travis Hunter goes number one. So if one of those things happen, Dan, the Giants could be in prime position to get, one of the two best quarterbacks in this draft right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I just have a feeling that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling this draft is going to be watched with a lot more intent, even almost at the same level that the last time I watched the draft with this much eyes on it was that 2004 NFL draft when the Giants drafted Eli Manning. That was
Very
just
true.
that draft when I watched that I just had this and I just watched this like there was anticipation watching this because you knew this was going to change everything. And
But Dan, let me ask you, as a Giants fan, I hear you frequently reference that that 2004 NFL draft, which I forget. Did the Giants draft third or fourth that year? I forget which number they had, but
I forgot what draft, but I remember they drafted
so
very early.
so it was either third or fourth. I forget which pick they had in that draft, but it's interesting to me that I hear you reference it, and obviously in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense because Eli ended up winning you 2 Super Bowls and being a great quarterback for, whatever it was, 15 to 20 years, however long he was here. But the interesting thing is that I never hear you call back, and this is even before he left to go to the Eagles, but I never hear you call back to that 2018 draft where the Giants had the number 2 pick and picked Saquon. So was there still, even back then in 2004, more anticipation for you in that 04 draft where you guys were picking third or fourth rather than 18 where the Giants had the number 2 pick?
Yeah, I just feel like just because of the way it turned out, because we had so many streaks of us not making the playoffs and stuff, and it's just Saquon peaked later on, and plus all the injuries and stuff when he was with the Giants. Just how it worked, just how it worked out. And plus,
but I mean, going into it, going into it, were you that excited in 2018 because the Giants had the number 2 pick?
I was excited. I was watching it, anticipating watching it, hoping this was going to alter the franchise. But I just feel like there was just a different energy in 2004 because there had been a drought. There had been a drought. Yeah. Actually, there was an overall drought of teams I'm a fan of winning a championship. because last time I saw a team I'm a fan of win a championship, the 1994 New York Rangers, and the last time I saw the Giants,
that's still the case.
Yeah, and the last time I saw my Giants win a championship, it was 8 years old during a Super Bowl 25. So there was just this anticipation that this was going to be something that we were going to see the Giants good again. There was going to potentially be this resurgence of the Giants happening at that time.
Very true. And it worked out.
And it just happened, and I I got to see this happen, and it not only did it happen, did it lead to 2 championships. It led to me. I've mentioned this many times, but it led to me seeing one happen in person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very
which
true. So
which not only led to that, but it just led to that, which still to this day will forever shock me that I ended up at a Super Bowl.
this is true, my friend. So
Yeah.
the Giants, and the Jets. We got a big draft coming up here. Giants picking third, Jets picking seventh. So who knows where the direction will take our organizations, and hopefully there are better days ahead. And as for the rest of New York sports, there are definitely better days ahead. We got the winter sports coming up so we're closing the book on the 2025 football season. We just did that. We spent the first half hour of the show breaking everything down. Now, now that the football year is complete for at least for a couple of weeks because free agency starts in a month. Uh, let's get into the other stuff now. We got some hot stove, some spring training. It's not even hot stove. We're past hot stove. Hot stove is in the rearview mirror right now, Dan, as we are coming up on spring training. The Mets and the Yankees have both officially reported. I can't believe it, man. This, it's always a long winter, but it still feels like even though the guys are there, that we're still a while away till anything happens. But the Mets' first spring training game is going to be next Saturday, so circle that on your calendars. But we're already here, and we get the news today too, as guys are just showing up and getting their early sessions in and everything. We found out last week that Pete Alonso re-signed with the Mets. Me and Dan jumped on. In case you missed it, we did our live reaction video to the Mets re-signing Pete Alonso. And if you want, we included it in last week's description too. Might as well include it in this week, just as the news broke out that Pete Alonso had re-signed with the Mets. Me and Dan jumped on and gave our celebration for a little while as we got Pete back. Now we know it's only a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first year. So basically, if he has a really good year this year, which we hope he does, he's probably gone after this year, or if not gone, testing the free market, the free agent market once again. So it's going to be, once again, it's going to be just a full year of everybody talking about Pete Alonso's future. But if he has a big year, nobody will mind whatever's to come next offseason, especially if he continues that in the playoffs. But Dan, real quick on Pete Alonso, what do you think about getting him back in camp? Me and you talked in the past too, just on last week's show, that it was imperative that we got him in before March 1st. And look, it's not even Valentine's Day yet, and Pete Alonso is in camp, past the physical, ready to go, right out of the jump.
This is great news. We got it done in time for him to be ready for the season. Don't have to worry about all that distractions just showing up late spring training. He's ready to go, and I expect a big season by Pete. I expect a big season by the Mets. Now the question is the pitching, and are they going to be able to pull off that trade to get that pitcher from San Diego that we were hearing about?
Yeah, they've been talking about Dylan Cease, and to be honest, Dan, it seems like that has kind of cooled off a lot. That was a hot topic, a week or two ago. Even when we were doing last week's show, it seemed like that was still in the realm of possibility. I don't know. Now that guys are showing up to spring training, I'm sure, a lot of the guys that were discussed in that trade are already in camp for the Mets. I'm sure Dylan Cease is in camp for the San Diego Padres already. It just feels like now, unless it happens, very soon before the first games start happening next week, it seems like that's going to be something that is going to be revisited during the season, maybe close to the trade deadline. You know what I mean? I feel it being like more of a July deal now.
Yeah, that exactly. And I just hope we have enough pitching that we can hang in there enough that will be relevant enough to make that trade. Because that's the thing that just questioning market with the Mets and hope we have enough of its pitching. And I think that starts with Singa being able to come back from that injury, missing all of last year, practically.
Yeah, man.
Not
And
really being able to do much.
getting something out of Senga is going to be huge this year. Getting Manaea, because let's sit here and be honest here for a minute here, as I can say the word here a little bit more. Here. Let's be honest, Dan. We could sit here as Met fans and be very positive about a guy like Sean Manaea, but we don't know for a fact that he's going to come back and be the same guy he was last year. As a matter of fact, there's a track record for guys that throw career highs in innings like Manaea did last year and come back the following year and experience a little bit of dead arm or just aren't as effective as they were the previous year. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Manaea. I'm just saying that has to be a scenario that has to be factored in. So we have to at least take that into consideration. I still have a lot of confidence in Sean Manaea. I think he's going to be a productive pitcher for us, and I hope continues to be in that ace form. But we can't sit here and act like it's a given. This isn't Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander coming in like they were a couple of years ago. This is Sean Manaea, who had a great year for us last year, no doubt about it, and he earned his contract. But we have to be, if he pitches back to the median where he's a little bit closer to a 4 ERA, maybe a little bit higher than a 4 ERA, that's something we're going to have to account for. So, when you look at what you're going to get from the other guys, Sean Manaea being close to the guy we had last year is going to be important. Like you said, it's going to be real interesting to see how healthy we could keep Kodai Senga and if he's going to resemble the guy he did 2 years ago. Also, Clay Holmes, I saw today, had his first bullpen session, and he was ready to go up for what they call 3 ups and 3 downs. So that means that he's ready to do 3 innings already. And, Carlos Mendoza, I was listening to him talk about that earlier this week too, and he was saying part of the reason for that is because as soon as they signed him, they put him on a progression plan that by the time he reports to spring training in February, he should be ready to go 3 innings. And he did that today. Apparently looked good. I saw him striking out Jesse Winker, looking pretty good on that. So I'm definitely enthused from what I saw out of Clay Holmes. Dan, at this point early on in spring, what is your expectation level for Clay Holmes as a starting pitcher?
I feel like Clay Holmes is going to have a better season than what's expected. I feel like he's one that's going to just exceed expectations. Another pitcher I feel like is going to look out maybe more in a pipeline in a minor league terms. Brandon Stout is going to be someone that needs to be heavily paid attention to this year and in the minors.
Yeah, he's a guy that's going to be in the mix, no doubt about it. The Mets have a bunch of guys in that mix right now. Also, Christian, who's the kid from last year? What was his last name?
Christian Scott.
Yes, Christian Scott is in that mix too. Tyler McGill is probably, because these are guys that are probably going to be in, the AAA to the big league back and forth all year. Obviously, David Peterson. We talked about the rotation. So if you look at the top 3 in Manaea, Senga, and Clay Holmes, then you get the bottom 2 where we know it's going to be David Peterson most likely and Frankie Montas. But then they also have the 6, because right now it looks like they're going to be using the 6-man rotation for a lot of this season, Dan. So they're going to have a chance to work in other guys. Paul Blackburn has been talked about, the guy they picked up from the A's last year who got hurt at the end of the year and couldn't really contribute other than a couple of starts. But I do like Paul Blackburn, and I like him coming in as a potential 6-man. Obviously, Tyler McGill is going to be in that mix, like you said. Brandon Sproat, Christian, what was his last name again? I don't know why I can't remember
Christian
right now.
Scott.
Christian Scott, yes.
And I feel like he's gonna have. I feel like Christian Scott's gonna have some big moments here.
He's also coming off that injury too. You have to remember he's coming off that injury from last year too. So I don't know how quickly the Mets are going to be working him into games, because there are certain guys they're going to take their time with. I even heard Mendoza say yesterday, don't expect to see Ronnie Mauricio in any games until mid-March. Now, how slow is Ronnie Mauricio's progression, man? This is a guy that got hurt last December playing when he, when he had that massive injury and knew he was going to miss all of 2024. And here we are, more than a full calendar year later, and Ronnie Mauricio still is not even, healthy enough to participate in the first half of spring training.
This is one I feel like is going to be one of those ones that turns out that never was. I feel like it's just looking like that. As
Yeah,
much as I don't
you
want
could
to
be
say
right.
that, I don't want to see that happen to anyone. It just looks like that.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. And last thing on the Mets before we move on here and wrap up with some Rangers and Knicks talk. The Mets have apparently made it clear they spoke to the president of baseball operations, David Stearns, that said that looks like they're not going to be coming to terms with OMG star and former Met infielder Jose Iglesias. This is a guy that had such an impact on the Mets last year. Iglesias hit 337 for the Mets after getting called up in late May. And I forget who it was, but one of the guys, maybe one of the guys in the Phillies, or it might have been Schwarber or somebody like that, came out and said that Iglesias should have been National League MVP last year, which was crazy to hear somebody say that. He said he believed that made that much of an impact on that Met team. And, it's interesting to hear somebody say that, to get the endorsements that he did. But apparently, Jose Iglesias, who, let's not forget, is represented by Scott Boras, was asking for too much money from the Mets, and the Mets just, we're not going to agree to give that much money to a guy that's essentially a bench player. And, who knows, they caught lightning in a bottle last year with Jose Iglesias, and he hit 337. You bring him back at big money this year, and that makes no sense. The guy, he could go out and hit 216, and then you'd be stuck with this guy as an albatross. So as much as I do like Jose Iglesias, and I would love to see him back in an ideal world, I understand why the Mets had to move on from Jose Iglesias. Dan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I just feel like this is one that was kind of going to turn out that way. Maybe it would be good on a 1 year deal, but I feel like he just wasn't a 2 year deal kind of player, and that's what it
Yeah, and
turned
he's
out.
asking for too much money.
And I feel like he just made a mistake going to Scott Boras, thinking he was going to get way more than what he really realistically wasn't going to get as an extra outfield, an extra infielder. Kind of, what did he
Yeah,
expect as an extra infielder to get?
yeah,
It just
yeah. And look,
he just went above himself, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
exactly what happened, and it just paid the price, and that's it. But either way, I just feel like we're gonna be fine. The
I
other thing
agree.
I gotta look at David Stearns maybe needs to stop hoarding prospects because we got a log jam at so many positions. You got a log jam at catcher, you got a log jam at shortstop. Maybe trade some of these for maybe pitching or something we need.
Well, see, this is a good thing too. I think the Mets have put themselves in position to do just that at the trade deadline. So we'll see what David Stearns has waiting. Um, you know,
And
right now, speaking, yeah,
and and I just feel like one of the things that maybe will question David Stearns' legacy as Mets GM, his ability to get us an ace.
yeah. Well, I mean, look, he's only been here for 2 years, basically. So,
And
we'll give him that ability. And to be honest, right now, you kind of have to say that right now, especially if he repeats what he did last year, Chamonix is the ace, and he did get
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. I feel like Sean Monet is the ace, but to throw them the kind of pitching that an ace like it was like he was throwing more pitching at more. He threw more innings than he would ever usually do, and I feel like it's gonna come down to. I feel like it's gonna come down to the pitching against that tough competition during the playoffs,
Yeah,
especially
well,
when you
see,
get to
it's all gonna
those
come.
tough opponents. And I just
That's
feel
what it's
like
all gonna come
our
down to, who they get at the trade deadline. That's what it comes
yeah,
down to now, and we know
yeah,
that.
and I just feel like our pitching was burnt out when we faced the Dodgers last year.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's moving along here. We spent a lot of time on the Mets. Let's pick it going up. We'll shift it to talking about trades and everything going on right now. There's a lot of trade winds swirling around our New York Rangers as this team has had a complete facelift throughout the entirety of this season. And right now, the Rangers are currently on a break, but they did have a nice comeback victory against the Columbus Blue Jackets the other night, 4-3. It was a great game seeing Will Cooley go out there, score two big goals. and the Rangers get the victory after a very lackluster loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins the previous night. Rangers sit just 3 points out of a playoff spot, despite all the stuff that has gone wrong for them this year. And there are a lot of trade wins going around right now for the Rangers. Potentially, I'm hearing that Ryan Lindgren is one of the leading people to be moved. And look, as much as I've loved Ryan Lindgren over the years, if you look at his defensive metrics for this year, Ryan Lindgren has nosedived in his productivity, specifically with Adam Fox. And when you look at the defensive metrics, these numbers inside the numbers, where you see it's basically Ryan Lindgren really dragging down Adam Fox's play. And as much as I like Adam Lindgren, as much as I like Ryan Lindgren, and I'll always respect the tenure of his work with the Rangers. I've loved the guy since they traded for him in the Rick Nash deal 5 or 6 years ago. He was one of my favorite guys to come over in that move. But it might be time to move on from Lindgren, and it looks like the Rangers are shopping him going into the deadline now. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I just feel like it makes sense shopping him. It just looks like he just doesn't hold up. They're just taking way too many hits with these injuries and stuff. Get something for him. Get some depth for him.
Yeah, or even a pick. You know, if you could go out there, let's say maybe you trade him to a team that's in the playoff hunt right now, and you get a first round pick next year. You could turn around and use that pick to go out and make a bigger trade and bring somebody better in. You know, especially with the cap space that the Rangers are going to have now after the Trouba trade and everything. I mean, if the Rangers could flip Lindgren and get a first round pick, that means you're going to have $4 million extra of cap space going into the trade deadline, which right now the Rangers have 16. So if you trade Lindgren, you got $20 million to use at the trade deadline. And $20 million in professional sports usually isn't a lot, but in the NHL, $20 million of cap space is an insane amount of room there. So the Rangers would have plenty of room to work with, and Drury could really do anything he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. That would be such a big that would be such a big thing. So, and I just feel like the Rangers are going to have a monster of a playoffs.
Yeah, if they make it, they're definitely in it right now, and it looks like the Rangers are in that. But they're in this break right now, and I want to get your opinion on this, Dan, too. So, I want to get your thoughts on the Four Nations face-off. This is a really interesting concept, I guess you could put it that way, that the NHL has come up for the international hockey fans around the world. It was supposed to be a World Cup when they were first coming up with it, but after everything that happened with Russia and the whole Ukraine crap and that war and everything going on over there, Russia isn't included in any international sports at the moment. So they couldn't include them in it. So they did a Four Nations face-off, which is the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. Interesting combination of 4 teams there. It kicks off tonight, as a matter of fact, where Canada is going to be taking on Sweden at 8 p.m. The U.S. schedule kicks off tomorrow against Finland at 8 p.m. By the way, that means this is as we're recording it on Wednesday night. So this is kicking off Wednesday night, the 12th, against Sweden. And if you're seeing this on YouTube on Thursday, the date debuts, then it'll be tonight for the U.S. and Finland at 8 p.m. So, Dan, what are your thoughts on this tournament as a whole, and what do you think the shot is of the U.S. coming away with the victory?
I feel like we got a good chance of coming out with the victory of it. I question this. I get that they wanted to do a build up for the fact that 8 NHL players are going to be in the Olympics next year, but I thought this was a weird idea to do this with just the players like this into the season already, having to play this much glorified exhibition during this 2 weeks.
That's the thing I don't get too. Like, because if you remember when they used to do the World Cup of Hockey, like remember the World Cup of Hockey from '96 that Mike Richter had that amazing run at, and the U.S. won. That was held in August. That makes more sense than holding it in season during having a tournament in February, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't make sense having this quick little thing in February. I don't quite get it. Not sure why they do this. It just would have been more made sense just do the 2 days All-Star game. That's it. nothing really much we have to worry about panicking. Now I'm getting scared, and I'm hoping I don't get PTSD of Edwin Diaz injured himself in the World Baseball Classic.
That's true because there are a lot of Rangers participating in this. Not only Mika Zibanejad's playing for Sweden, but we also got a bunch of guys on the American team with Chris Kreider being more of a depth role. But then you got starters out there like JT Miller, Adam Fox. Really interesting, mix of Rangers out there in this tournament. So we'll have to keep our eye on them. Yeah, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Hopefully everybody stays healthy.
yeah. And I gotta say something about this. The if the United States team doesn't do this, they're missing on a golden opportunity. I feel like they need to go on the they need to hit they need to enter the ice to that song "America Fuck Yeah" from Team America World Police.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And obviously, it's always tough to beat Canada in these international competitions. So, and then hey, Sweden and Finland have good teams too. So, bunch of NHL representation out here. So, the Rangers' next game won't be until February 22nd at Buffalo. So, 10 days from the day that we are recording this will be the next NHL game. So, this tournament will stretch over about a week plus. Real interesting to see how that works out. Finally, let's wrap up here with some Knicks talk, Dan. As last Saturday, the Knicks had a real crappy loss at home against Boston, but the Knicks rebounded with a big win against Indiana. That's right, the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year in the second round. The Knicks beat them in Indiana 128-115. Like I said, after that tough Saturday night home blowout loss to the Boston Celtics, where the last couple of games the Knicks have not had OG and Anunoby, but to be fair, Boston didn't have Porzingis on Saturday night either, so they got blown out 131-104 in that loss, but came back last night real strong. Jalen Brunson did not have a great game, but that didn't matter as his two teammates picked him up. Karl Anthony Towns went out there and was dominating from the outset of the game. 40 points, 12 rebounds, and Josh Hart, Brunson's Villanova teammate, went out there and poured on 30 points and 10 rebounds. Those two guys combining for those numbers, along with some clutch plays going down. The Knicks won this game pretty handily against Indiana. And, just goes to show you, man, that this Knicks team, it doesn't matter what happens. They kind of remind me of the 2024 Mets, where every time this Knicks team took a punch to the mouth, and same thing with the Mets last year, it felt like that Mets team, it didn't matter. Whatever you did to them, they were going to get up the next day and fight as if it didn't even happen the day before. And that is the definition of a professional team, that you don't take things personally. You don't let it get in your head. And that's exactly what the Knicks did. They could have come out sulking, which we've seen. Look, how many times have we seen the Knicks over the last decade and a half go out there after, whether it's a big win and they're too big for their britches, or they go out there after a big loss and sulk, and it turns into a losing streak rather than just one game. The Knicks went out there and got rid of any doubt in your head that they were going to let this linger. And hey, that's a welcome change to what we've seen in this culture and organization with that big victory. Now the next game they got is tonight, right before we record this. It's at 7 o'clock, about a half hour away from tip-off right now. And you see, Dan, look at this, 35-18 going against the Hawks, who are 2 under, but right in that brink playoff range right now. 35-18, man. The Knicks won 50 games last year. We saw them 150 a couple of years ago too. But this Knicks team, I don't think it's even debatable. This is the best Knicks team that we've seen probably since the Patrick Ewing era.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope the Knicks get over the hump against Boston. I'm because every time seeing these losses against Boston, it's giving me PTSD in the '90s, losing to the fucking Bulls so many times.
Yeah. And hey, you know what? That's the thing too. You could go out there and you can take these losses on the chin, like the Knicks did in this game, and you can go out there and get revenge in the playoffs. Let's not forget the New York Mets started off last season 0-5. The first 3 games of that start was a 3-game sweep at Citi Field at the hands of the Milwaukee Brewers. So things didn't exactly go great later that year either when they were playing in Milwaukee, but the Mets ended up scraping it out because Milwaukee had things kind of wrapped up at that point. But the Mets got the ultimate revenge in going out there and knocking the Brewers out in their own building in the playoffs, courtesy of a Pete Alonso 3-run shot. And Dan, I feel like for the Knicks, the ultimate revenge would be beating the Celtics in the playoffs.
Yeah, I just have a feeling that that is gonna happen. I just have a good feeling that that's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna be going nuts. I just gotta hope my TV doesn't break celebrating. Which is the
Yeah,
other
man.
possibility of break. Which is there's two ways of breaking a TV during a game. One, getting so upset you throw stuff and you break the TV because of how these TVs can't take hits anymore like the older TVs did, or you're celebrating and you accidentally break a TV. Either way, you got to be careful.
Either way, you're right about that, my friend. And the Knicks will look to keep the good vibes going tonight against the Hawks at the Garden. The consummate villain Trae Young showing up there tonight, so the Garden will be hostile as ever against him. And some good news for the Knicks, as like I mentioned earlier, they've been without one of the guys. And I would argue, we were talking about the Boston game where obviously both teams were shorthanded. They didn't have Porzingis and we didn't have OG. OG Anunoby is much more valuable to the Knicks than Kristaps Porzingis is to the Celtics. Porzingis with the Celtics is kind of like the cherry on top. Sure, is he a great player? No doubt about it when he's healthy. Does he make the Celtics better? Yes, he absolutely does because he's a good player. But the Celtics can get by without Kristaps Porzingis. They have a great team, and Jaylen Brown is able to take over, and the rest of those guys, no doubt about it. That's a tough team to beat. Porzingis is the cherry on top. OG is much more embedded in the Knicks' success. He's one of the better defensive players on the Knicks, and when he's adding on that offense, he becomes integral to what the Knicks are doing on the floor. So I really think that it makes a lot of sense for the Knicks to have been blown out in that fashion on Saturday because of OG's absence. And I think once he rejoins the lineup, which could come as early as tonight, OG is listed as questionable, which is a good progression. If it means they're feeling good about him getting back in. And also Thibodeau was asked, me and you have discussed Mitchell Robinson at length over the last couple of weeks and how he hasn't even been discussed. But the Knicks did not go out and pick up a big man to replace him at the trade deadline, which passed last week in the NBA. So he was asked, Tom Thibodeau, was asked, if that means that the Knicks are confident that Mitchell's going to be back at some point soon. And he said yes. So that means within the next couple of weeks, the Knicks should be getting him back. They're going to have OG back. It's going to be nice to see what this Knicks team looks like when they're fully healthy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking forward to seeing that finally, and we'll be seeing that in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and they're about to get healthy. And on that, Dan, I think that's just about going to do it for us here tonight on the Best Seat in the House podcast. We covered a lot of ground. That's another great one. Dan, before we get out of here, though, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure. My Twitter, Bobo103NYC, Instagram, Bobo718DK. And of course, YouTube's one word. That Daniel Curlin, just one word, Daniel Curlin. You get access to some Bobo content on there on the YouTube. Also, remember, subscribe to our Patreon because you get 2 weeks early access to my YouTube videos, and you get things like Bobo's Trackside Minute, which is going to be restarting up soon because the Daytona 500 begins this Sunday.
That's right. And Bobo's Trackside Minute went out within the last couple of days, and you always get to watch us do the shows early and everything. So we appreciate all the support we have from our Patreon members. Like I said, go out there and check it out, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. Also, don't forget to check us out. If you want to listen to the audio version of our podcast, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, and don't forget to subscribe and like our videos on YouTube because it really helps us with the algorithm and getting our shows seen out there. So want to thank everybody for helping out and hanging out with us as always. For my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, everybody. And we'll catch you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend.
It was a good